Alright, Mr. Bland here. Second part of this video, we're talking about naming compounds still, and this time we're talking about covalent bonds. Remember, covalent bonds happen between non-metals, and this is when they share electrons. So we're going to start off with a non-metal compound, for example, CO2, right? We've seen this before. It's a pretty common gas, and let's look at the C. C stands for carbon. O stands for oxygen. So, with nonmetals, they can bond in some sort of weird shape sometimes and weird amounts. And so there are other possible ways that carbon could bond with oxygen, other amounts of oxygen, other amounts of carbon. So we have to be a little bit more specific with our naming, and we're going to be looking at the numbers here. Now remember, with this subscript, there isn't anything here for this carbon, so there's like a little invisible 1 right there. So based off of how many of each element we have will affect what we put on the front of our name or our prefixes. Okay, so I've written them right here. 1 is mono, 2 is di, 3 is tri, tetra, penta, hexa, hepta, octa. That's pretty much where we can stop. We don't need to go any further than that. So I'll start by looking at the oxygen. Okay, we have 2 oxygens. So that means that when we write our oxide, right, because oxygen is oxide, we are going to put di in front of it. Now, the carbon pops up front, and we look and we see, okay, there's only 1 carbon. So we could write monocarbon dioxide. However, most of the time, if your very first word, your first element is mono, it's just 1, then we can just leave it and it's implied, okay? So the only time you want to put a name or another prefix in front of here is if this number is different. So if this is C2O4, we're going to want to call this dicarbon, and we're going to change this to a lowercase. And this changes from dioxide to tetraoxide, okay? So this is covalent bonds.